Hey everybody, Tony D with a hot take and little Jones in the other room, sleeping in the other room, so I thought I'd give her a break. We're going to take a look at this article. I was reminded of it by Tim Pool in one of his rants today. And this is from January 2019. This is the Intercept. Glenn Greenwald, Beyond BuzzFeed, the worst 10, or the 10 worst, most embarrassing U.S. media failures on the Trump-Russia story. And the reason I'm going over this is to kind of remind people that, we've had a lot of media failures in recent times, and you should keep that in mind when people are on the news telling you, hey, quarantine yourself. Because these media failures are pretty bad. Pretty bad. Now, you can go to the Intercept and read this story. It's really good. But we'll just kind of go through it. So number 10, Russian TV hacked into and took over C-SPAN. This was from Fortune Tech. And you could see that they tweeted it. C-SPAN confirms it was briefly hacked by a Russian news site. So you see a lot of tweets here about it. C-SPAN finally comes out. No, we weren't hacked. So it wasn't true. That's a pretty big failure. C-SPAN moments ago issued a statement confirming its initial hunch that the misdirected online broadcast wasn't the work of any nefarious actor. C-SPAN concluded in its investigation, as we had anticipated last Thursday, the interruptions of our C-SPAN org livestream on January 12th was caused by an internal routing error. So, and one would have to ask, why would RT even hack C-SPAN for like a few moments? Doesn't seem like it would get them much. And then the correction was issued. This story was originally ran under the title C-SPAN confirms it was briefly hacked by a Russian news site. And they had to correct the headline to C-SPAN was briefly interrupted by a Russian news network because, it was just a mistake. And I can confirm that mistake's easy to make. You push the wrong button in the booth. I worked at a Sports 8 in Hamilton, and one night I pushed the wrong button on the satellite and I put us on the wrong channel. Like there are feeds coming down, and as you know, I'm not technically literate, so I pushed the wrong button and knocked the Sports 8 off and got in all kinds of trouble. Number 9, Russian hackers invaded the U.S. electricity grid to deny Vermonters heat during the winter. This is from the Washington Post, December 30th, 2016. Now keep in mind, these are basically fake. This is basically fake news. So basically the Washington Post said that Russian hackers penetrated the U.S. electric grid, which, if you know anything about our electric grid, it's pretty ramshackle to begin with. I don't know how the Russians would even go about doing that. I don't know how anybody would go about doing that. So, and then it just gets repeated. It gets repeated because someone like the Washington Post reports this, people take it as gospel, and then it gets repeated. So here's the Telegraph. Systematic, relentless, predatory Russian cyber threats to U.S. power grid exposed as malware found on major electricity company computer. Oh, okay. This is the correction. So then they changed the earlier version of the story. So it goes from the Russians are attacking to like somebody had a virus on their computer. So yeah, here's the Washington Post having to countermand its own story. Russian government hackers do not appear to have targeted Vermont utility, say people close to the investigation. You could drill down into this on the internet site. Number 8. A new deranged anonymous group declares mainstream political sites on left and right to be Russian propaganda outlets, and Washington Post touts its report to claim massive Kremlin infiltration of the internet. This is also the Washington Post. I remember this one as well. This was basically an attempt to smear sites on the internet. What you have to understand, newspapers, television, all those mediums are collapsing into the internet. But as they do, the people who work at these sources, I think, are realizing, hey, we're going to be working on the internet, and those guys don't make a lot of money. You don't make as much money on the internet. It's lower overhead. It's easier work in some respects, but it's harder to monetize the internet because so much of it is free and out there. So, as you can see, more tweets about it. And, basically they just smeared all these websites. 200 websites as routine peddlers of Russian propaganda. And this permeates the internet. And back in 2019 and still today, you have people who will call you a Russian bot because you repeated something from one of these sites, or I would get in arguments on the internet. I stopped providing links to people because basically they would just call wherever I linked, oh, that's a Russian bot. That's a Russian bot. Oh, everybody knows that. The Russians were everywhere. Where are they now? Where are the Russians now? Washington Post on the fake news hot seat. Wah, wah. Number 7. Trump aide Anthony Scaramucci is involved in a Russian hedge fund under Senate investigation. This is June 2017. And I guess this is when Scaramucci was still, during that short window, he was still in the administration. And so CNN. And then here's the retraction. CNN published a story connected Anthony Scaramucci with the investigations into the Russian direct investment fund. That story did not meet CNN's editorial standards and has been retracted. Links to the story have been disabled. CNN apologizes to Mr. Scaramucci. But see, in the world of the internet, these guys already got their clicks. It doesn't matter that they've taken it off. Who goes back through, very few people go back through the library of a website, especially one as topical as CNN. So they don't really lose any money on this. They lose credibility. I guess you could say they lose money in the long term, but, unless Scaramucci decides to sue these guys, and, they'll just say, well, we retracted it. What else you want to do? We made a mistake. But these people make a lot of mistakes these days, and it's amazing. All the mistakes seem to go in one direction. And here it is here, New York Times. 3 CNN journalists resign after retracted story on Trump ally. Well, that's good. But it's still happening. It's still happening. Number 6. Russia attacked U.S. diplomats, i.e. spies, at the Cuban embassy using a super sophisticated sonic microwave weapon. And I remember this and just thinking, God, how the hell could they possibly even know this? How do they know about the secret weapon and how it works and when it was used? So, they just started reporting this, that people had brain damage and headaches and, it's just ridiculous. Cuban autistic, and this is the Guardian, Cuban acoustic attack report on U.S. diplomats flawed, say neurologists. See, when people have actual, people with degrees, real degrees, have time to look at the evidence, they see that it's fake. So, that haunted U.S. diplomats in Cuba, Lovelorn crickets, scientists say. New York Times. New York Times coming. There's a picture of a cricket. Number 5, Trump created a secret internet server to covertly communicate with Russia. And this is from Slate. And if you're listening to Slate, I mean, I got a bridge to sell you. A very woke and diverse and inclusive bridge, but nevertheless a bridge. Was a Trump server communicating with Russia. Now, this is another framing thing where they're just like, did Trump kill a puppy? You know, they just asked I'm just asking questions. And here's Hillary Clinton retweeting something about it. Oh no, this is computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. Yeah, so this is Hillary Clinton issuing a statement. Yeah, she's not running for president, by the way. Joe Biden's only falling apart and getting Me Too'd. But she's not running for president, right? H.A. Goodman. H.A. Goodman knew. And then, you know, she keeps rubbing it in. And then the story fell apart. That secret Trump-Russia email server link is neither secret nor a Trump-Russia link. Fortune. No, Donald Trump is not talking to Russia on a secret server. Number 4, Paul Manafort visited Julian Assange 3 times at the Ecuadorian embassy, and no one noticed. Nobody noticed. This one I followed pretty closely because I followed Julian Assange fairly closely. This would have been huge news if Manafort would manage to get in. Nobody was really visiting Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy after a while. I mean, they were looking at him pretty tight, and there was no way you could get in and out of that place without being seen. No way. If you could, Julian would have escaped because there were plans to get him out of there. Yeah. So this was just dumb on its face. Who reported this? Oh, The Guardian. Yeah, so weird because they're there. They're there in London, you know. But, you know, Chris Hayes tweeting it. The sourcing of this is a bit thin, or at least obscured, but it's the ultimate whoa if true. If it's ball game if true. See, this is the kind of stuff we've been hearing for years and years. This is 2018. Years and years. This is it. This is the smoking gun that's going to get Trump impeached, everyone. And yet, he's still the president. And yet, it's all been proven fake. And yet, no one talks about it anymore. This is all the stuff for Russia. And look here, MSNBC, Los Angeles Times, USA Today. 5 weeks after The Guardian's viral blockbuster Assange Manafort scoop, no evidence has emerged, just stonewalling. And The Guardian offered a bombshell story about Paul Manafort. It still hasn't detonated. Number 3, CNN explicitly lied about Lanny Davis being its source for a story whose substance was also false. Cohen would testify that Trump knew in advance about the Trump Tower meeting. This one I don't really understand all that much, but has to do with Michael Cohen, and I don't know, that guy I wouldn't trust. He struck me as a guy who was kind of saving his own skin, and this Russian probe just scooped everybody up and threatened them. I mean, that's what they do in one of these probes, right? Let's see. Attorney for Michael Cohen backs away from confidence that Cohen has information about Trump's knowledge on Russian efforts. I mean, he seemed to imply he had all this bombshell stuff that was going to come out. And I think a lot of times they just, frame it that way. So they think a guy like Trump will just go, well, I better confess. Not going to happen. Not with Trump. So, exclusive from Axios, Michael Cohen told Congress he doesn't know if Trump knew about Russia meetings. So there you go. There you go. He's just trying to leverage himself a deal, probably. Number 2, Robert Mueller possesses internal emails and witness interviews proving Trump directed Cohen to lie to Congress. So Here's BuzzFeed. Yeah, those guys aren't very trustworthy, in my opinion. Breaking: President Trump personally directed his longtime attorney Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about negotiations to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Yeah, I remember this story. I remember arguing about this story. And, it on its face, it's like, this guy, Trump, if Trump had wanted to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, and that had gotten further along, do you think he wouldn't just tell people? It's not illegal. It's not illegal. The only question is, would Trump trade the making of the tower for some favors or something? He doesn't even need to do that. Trump is good in optics. He understands how optics work. So imagine the optics after Trump is done his second term. And you've seen how retired presidents do. They do very, very well. Trump was doing well before he was president. After president, he's going to do even better. After presidency, oh my God, after his presidency, Trump. Will he build a tower in Moscow? He'll build a tower wherever he wants. People will be falling all over themselves to build a tower. He knows that. He doesn't have to trade a favor to get a tower. Even if he goes out, even after this term, he goes out, people will fall. Oh, President Trump, President Trump. People love the U.S. president. They love that cachet, especially in other countries. Trump knows that. It's ridiculous. Oh, and there's Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff finally rears his head in this. Okay, where's the retraction? Where's the retraction? Oh man, so many people repeating this. Yeah, it just gets very complicated. In a rare move, Mueller's office denies BuzzFeed report that Trump told Cohen to lie about the Moscow project. That's how bad it got. It was such a big lie that Mueller's office had to issue a statement. Do you remember that? You remember where they issued a statement? They didn't issue statements about anything. They got to ask questions all the time. And it wasn't until Mueller testified and the report came out, you got information. But during that time, it was mostly nothing, right? And then Mueller's office had to come out and deny this story because they knew it was a lie. It was a total fabrication. Finally, Donald Trump Jr. was offered advance access to the WikiLeaks email archive. I remember this one. This was just totally ridiculous. They said Donald Trump Jr. Got offered these emails, but the problem was the archive email was sent after the archive was available online. So, and it was so pathetic, like they were easily able to point out that the dates right here, CNN correcting it because they repeated it too. So many people repeated this story. The story has been corrected to say that the date of the email was September 14th, 2016, not September 4th, 2016. The story also changed. The headline was removed a tweet from Donald Trump Jr. who posted a message about WikiLeaks on September 4th. And, they basically got the date wrong. and this is the kind of stuff we get from the media. This is how sloppy they are. They're so sloppy in reporting stuff. And then at the bottom of this, keep reading the article because at the bottom they have dishonorable mentions to all kinds of other stories that you're like, oh, there's so many other stories. Yeah. I think there's another 10, 15 stories here. There is ABC News' Brian Ross is fired from reporting Trump told Flynn to make contact with Russia when he was still a candidate. And I remember that as well. So you can see how bad these guys are. And when you go back and you look at this record of all these mainstream media outlets, and it's mostly CNN, and even when it's not CNN or MSNBC or somebody they're repeating it. They can't wait to repeat these stories because they're so anxious to get Trump. Like, oh my God, a story against Trump. Let's quick, get it out there. We have to get it out there. And this is why you can't trust them. because even in this, even in this crisis we have, they're willing to say something that's untrue to get at Trump and help their side. They're willing to say and do anything. You cannot trust them. Now that doesn't mean they don't report things that are true once in a while, but you cannot take their word at face value. This is just the stuff on the Russiagate thing, and that's like 3 or 4 scandals ago. Scandals that are going to take down the Trump presidency. Remember that? The Russians. That was before the Ukraine. That was after he was going to start World War III with North Korea, and way before the beer virus. And now we're into the beer virus. And look how many things they said about Trump and the administration about the related to the beer virus that really isn't true. And now the latest. Oh, he told everybody to inject bleach in himself. That's not what he said. He was spitballing. He said, could that be a cure? You somehow using disinfectant in the body to kill the germs? Turns out there are treatments like that, and turns out there are UV light treatments inside the body that they're developing. And I suspect Trump maybe even saw that on the internet, but he wasn't even suggesting it seriously. And it was stupid for him to come out and say he was being sarcastic. I don't think he was. I think he was just spitballing. He was just standing on the podium and spitballing. He probably shouldn't have been doing that. But certainly the reporters should not have been reporting it as if he told people to go out and drink bleach. So, but you see who you're dealing with. You're seeing people who are willing to say these stories again and again and again, and they don't care that they're not true at all. We were supposed to be deep in Russian territory by this time. Back in 2019, Russian asset Donald Trump has to be impeached, right? Where did all that go? Oh, no, we got a better story. Forget all that. We got the Ukraine. Oh, wait, forget all that. Now we could say he wrecked the economy. He mishandled the beer virus thing. And then I guess they'll be on to something else if that doesn't work, right? Anyhow, that's the state of media these days. And if you want to check out their top 10 hits from that January article, check out Glenn Greenwald in the Intercept. I am Tony D, and we'll see you next time.